back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping It Sports with M3.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Are you ready? Are you ready for
Place for the best sports talk and news surrounding each league.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey man, this time we're gonna do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rosansky. Coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, powered by Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Good afternoon, everyone. I am, of course, your host, Mike M3 Rosansky, coming to you here on this Monday, the 13th day of July for 2026. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all off to a great start in your day, great start in your week, whatever it is you might be doing at this moment of time. Thank you for taking some time out of your day, whether you're watching the podcast live on YouTube or you don't feel like looking at me for the next hour and wait till Tuesday to listen to the podcast version of it. All's cool. I accept and welcome any support, any listening, viewing, whatever. Feel free to comment on any of this, whether it be in the chat section or it be in any of my social media accounts, which you can follow me on X at M3 Rosansky, on Instagram at Mike M3 Rosansky. Find me on Instagram, Keeping It Sports with M3, an underscore in between each of those words. We also have a Facebook page for this. And as well, all of these accounts, links, and everything as far as podcast links can be found through my Linktree page. Just look me up, M3 Rosansky. Now, this is always one of the weirdest and most difficult weeks of the year to do a podcast, or if you're in any other form of broadcasting or media, whether it be people doing radio, the people that are on TV, whatever it may be, because it's the All-Star break in Major League Baseball. We don't have the NFL yet. The NBA and the NHL are in their off seasons. NBA free agency has kind of calmed down just a little bit. So it's kind of hard to do a podcast during these weeks. You're almost grasping at straws for things to talk about. While we are past the halfway point of the Major League Baseball season, everybody has played at least, 94 to 96 games at this point. It is, I think, a large enough sample size to look at the MLB season so far and break things down, see where everybody is sitting. I know it's long been talked about how the American League is kind of the junior circuit to the National League. And you look at the National League, the Dodgers are running away with the West, 25 games over 500. The Milwaukee Brewers are right there on their tails for the best record in the National League, have slowed up just a bit, getting swept over the weekend, but still one of the best teams in baseball, and continue to make David Stearns look like a complete fool for the job that he's doing with the Mets. You have the Atlanta Braves, who got off to a great start, even despite the pitching injuries that they had in April. But then they look over their shoulder, and there's both the Philadelphia Phillies and the Miami Marlins, the Phillies who have been as hot as any team in baseball since firing Rob Thompson, naming Don Mattingly their manager for the rest of this season. So you have some teams that have somewhat separated themselves in the National League, whereas in the American League, you look at things right now, really you just have to be at 500 or dance around that a little bit, and you're still somewhat considered in the race. I mean, hell, the Detroit Tigers are 8 games under 500, have played as bad of baseball as you can possibly imagine this season, and are about 3 weeks away from having to make one of the more difficult decisions of the baseball season, whether to trade Tarek Skubal or not. He has made his point known that he would like to stay there. They've got to decide whether this 3.5 games they're out of the third wild card is fool's gold or not. I mean, right now, the third wild card spot in the American League is a game under 500, tied by the Mariners and the Minnesota Twins. The Mariners, you could argue, are one of the more disappointing teams in baseball. And the Twins, a team that we thought were going to be sellers a month ago, are putting any halt on talks of possibly trading Ryan Jeffers or Joe Ryan or anybody that contending teams may value to try to grab. And I say all of this because, I mean, yeah, you look at a team like the Boston Red Sox, who's gone on a 9-game winning streak, been as hot as anyone in baseball, especially since they swept the Yankees up at Fenway Park a couple of weeks ago. But I say all of this to somewhat calm down my fellow Yankee fans, who I will admit, I've been annoyed with the way that this team has played over the last month. And I will continue to ride the idea that even despite the injuries, even despite the fact that you haven't seen Max Fried in over a month and a half, despite the fact that we haven't seen Aaron Judge since May, despite the fact that you haven't seen Giancarlo Stanton since April, there's still more than enough talent on this team where they shouldn't be continuously going through this nonsense, this clown show chicanery that is yearly referred to as their June swoon. When you have a rotation that still consists of Gerrit Cole, that still consists of Cam Schlittler, who, I don't care what he says, I think John Schneider would have been looking like a damn fool if he would have picked his own guy in Dylan Cease over Cam Schlittler, had he known Cam Schlittler would have been pitching in the All-Star Game. Cam Schlittler's been the best pitcher in the American League so far this season. But when you have a rotation with those two, mixed in with the up and downness, should we say, of the likes of Ryan Weathers and Will Warren, and with Carlos Rodon, who I know has been on the IL for the last week, but was starting to wrap into form there before dealing with some inflammation in his elbow. That's still more than enough to compete, still more than enough to keep your head above water. And this lineup, yeah, you've had some cracks in this lineup as of late. Paul Goldschmidt, who they've got him more than they ever could have expected out of this guy this season, went through one of the ugliest slumps that you're ever going to see, going 0 for 34 before breaking out of things in the last week. Bellinger went through a slump. Wright went through his slump. But those slumps highlighted how much of a deterrence some of the other parts of this lineup have been, whether it be catcher or the left side of the infield, or how much they missed having a bat like Trent Grisham in there when he was on the IL for a couple of weeks. You can say Aaron Judge is great. We know that. He's a multi-time MVP. He's one of, if not the best player in baseball when he's healthy. But it takes more than just one guy to win in baseball. This isn't like the NBA where you have that dominant alpha male star, or the NFL if you have the elite quarterback. Aaron Judge gets 4, maybe 5 at bats in a game. The other guys gotta carry their weight as well. The other guys have gotta step up and show what they're capable of. What you've seen from the Yankees in the last week was a little more calming, should we say, a little more reassuring. The fact that they were able to go down to Tampa and get the split in their 4-game set with the Tampa Bay Rays. And then over the weekend, win this series down in our nation's capital, sweeping the Washington Nationals. Does help the fact that the Washington Nationals have one of, if not the worst bullpens that you're ever going to find. And they were able to take advantage of that. Hell, yeah, it's disappointing that you were only able to split with the Rays and not able to gain any true ground on them. But the fact that one of those games that you won was the game where you essentially ran out your entire bullpen does show a little bit of the resiliency of this group, does show a little bit of the fact that even when the chips are down, this team has a way of stepping things up, stemming the tide, and showing that they've got some fight in them. Even as the entire world is ripping them, as yours truly is getting frustrated watching them strike out 34 times over a 2-game span. And Aaron Boone can lie to us all he wants about the quote-unquote approach of the team, how he thinks it's just one of those things they go through. Striking out 17 times. I know the sport has become such a homer-happy sport with the launch angle and all the analytical nonsense with it, and you're dealing with pitchers that are throwing harder than ever, pitchers that have nastier breaking stuff than ever. There is no excuse in the world to ever go out there and strike out 17 times in 2 consecutive ball games. You've got to show a little bit more fight than that, a little bit more of gumption than that in a game, rather than swinging for the fences every damn at bat with what we're watched over the last week from this team. Yeah, the Rays have some nasty pitchers on their staff, including McClanahan. But 17 times in consecutive games, not what you want to see from this team. And they look like a team that was badly needing the All-Star break, badly needing to get to somewhat of a reset point here. And it's an All-Star break that, let's face it, it comes at the most opportune time for this organization as well. Because, yeah, you've been without Aaron Judge for a long time now, but maybe you're going to start to get some answers on when you're going to get the big fella back, as he's going to have his ribs re-examined this week for the first time since he went on the IL in early June. And this is kind of a weird injury because it's not one of those that you need surgery on. It's not something where you can inject something in them and hope to speed up the process. We're talking about a fractured rib here in the top portion of his ribs, closer to the shoulder region, around the armpit area. This is one of those injuries that you really needed to be at 100% before he could start doing anything. We're not just talking swinging the bat. He hasn't even been weightlifting in that time. He's been able to do exercises to keep the lower half of his body strong, but he's not been doing any of his bench pressing or typical upper body activities that he would do to keep himself healthy, to keep himself in line. So that is definitely something that you got to be concerned about. Definitely something that you hope that he's completely healthy, that you hope that he's ready to go when they start doing baseball activities and when he starts doing rehab games. But until then, you're never going to be able to truly test it. And that's going to be the big key as far as these injuries, because every report you've heard from Max Fried seems calm, seems comforting, as well as the reports that you hear about Carlos Rodon. You expect it to not be too long before you see those guys back on the mound for the Yankees pitching in real big league games. As far as Giancarlo Stanton is concerned, I've given up hope on whether we're going to see him at all this season. Hell, it wouldn't surprise me if he never plays another game for the Yankees when you take into consideration he's got 1 year left on his contract, and we've got the big unknown when it comes to the MLB CBA negotiations coming up this coming off season. But that doesn't take away any of the pressure that is on Brian Cashman as we head into this trade deadline. A trade deadline where there's things you got to fix on this Yankee team. You need to upgrade offensively at catcher, preferably right-handed. But the problem you have right now is the Twins are in the third wildcard spot, so they're not going to be quick to move off of Ryan Jeffers, even with him coming off of the IL over the weekend. The Rockies don't seem interested in trading Hunter Goodman, and why would you? You have 3 more years of team control on him. You want to build something there at some point. So you're kind of stuck there. But you'd like to make upgrades on the left side of the infield, as Ryan McMahon has been an offensive slog. And then defensively, you watch Ahmed Rosario over the weekend, and he's not providing you any defensive help. See, in a perfect world, you wish you could combine those two players, and then you'd have a really good third baseman with McMahon's defense and what Rosario can bring for you offensively, especially against left-handed pitching. But unfortunately, that kind of cloning or combining is not humanly possible. Other than that, you really need to upgrade this bullpen. I don't care that the Yankees have the best bullpen ERA in all of Major League Baseball. I've watched this bullpen for 96 games now to realize that there is a circle of trust here, and you do not want to burn out these guys. Bednar, awesome as your closer, only blown 2 saves all year, is on a stretch of 16 consecutive scoreless outings. You're fine with him. Cruz, I thought there should be an argument to be made for him making the All-Star team, whether it be on the initial roster or as a replacement player somewhere along the line. Then you got what has been a pleasant surprise for the Yankees, or should I say a couple of pleasant surprises for them in Brett Hedrick and Paul Blackburn. Brett Hedrick made the team essentially as the last guy coming out of spring training and has been a very solid piece in this bullpen, worked his way up the pecking order, even pitching out of some big spots, including over the weekend, keeping it a 2-0 game when he came in for Slittler on Saturday, getting a big strikeout with the bases loaded. And that helped in the Yankees' comeback with them rallying in the 8th inning. And then Blackburn, you've gotten more out of him than I think anyone could have expected. And I know he's not an old guy, but in some ways he's kind of the Paul Goldschmidt of the bullpen, where you really expected nothing out of him. But he's turned into a solid relief pitcher for them, has an ERA around a 1.5 since May 2nd. But A, how much of that you think is real, and can he continue that into the second half? And B, with those 4 guys I listed as your circle of trust there, you'd like to get another reliever or 2 in there, especially with the health of this rotation currently, and just how much of a disaster the rest of those guys have been. Duvall and Bird are essentially unpitchable, and I don't know what the hell has gone on with Tim Hill as of recently, but he's been very homer prone over the last month. They have some answers in the minor league system. You've got the youngster in Giovanni Cruz that has looked good in a couple of his outings here. And who knows, maybe there's a young pitching prospect that they could convert to a reliever for the remainder of the season. Maybe Luis Gil comes back from the IL and could be that answer. Or as they start getting starters back healthy, you could turn to some of these guys, the extra guys, should we say, whether it be a Weathers or a Warren, and have them pitching out of the bullpen. But there's definitely work to be done on this roster over the next 3 weeks as they head toward the trade deadline. This is the time of the year where Brian Cashman has to prove his worth and not just go bargain basement shopping. If that means, and I'm not saying trade someone like George Lombard Jr., but if that means trading your 7th, 8th, or 9th best prospect, or who you perceive to be that level of prospect, a prospect that you worry could come back to hurt you at some point, fine, do it. So be it. Because opportunities to win a World Series are scarce. It's something you haven't done in almost 17 years, and you don't want to waste the Aaron Judge era. You don't want to have an entire great career go by and realize, damn, we watched greatness before us and we wasted it because we didn't go that extra mile. We didn't take that chance when we had the opportunity to do so and capitalize on a great career and fulfilling that great career with at least one, and what you hope is multiple championships. All right, going to take my first break of the podcast, but I got plenty left to talk about. Give you some thoughts in a few minutes on Team USA losing in the World Cup, mix in some thoughts about what remains in NBA free agency, mixing some thoughts a little bit later on Conor McGregor as well. So there's a lot going on that I want to talk about, try to fit it all in here over this next hour here. And once again, as always, I'm glad you guys could join me this week. As I tell you each and every single week, though, at this time, please sit back, relax, help put your feet up if you feel like it, and continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
If you've listened to my podcast long enough, then you would know that I am a big believer in the sports gods. I am a big believer in sports karma. I guess last week was a way of the sports gods shaking their finger at Team USA. It was a way of karma coming back to get us with the controversy that came out leading up to their round of 16 matchup where FIFA essentially decided to suspend the red card on Florian Balogun that would have prevented him in playing in the game against Belgium for 1 year and let him play in this game after intervenience from our president, Donald Trump. I've always said this, I hate when politicians get involved in anything involving the sports world. And who knows, maybe Belgium still would have beaten us without Balogun, but you got to think that provided a little bit of extra influence on their part, provided a little bit of an extra motivation for them looking at this and saying, yo, we're getting a raw deal here. This is a bunch of crap that this guy who was not supposed to play in this game is now being allowed to play in it. So let's go out there and shove it down Team USA's throat. Let's go out there and prove why we're the better team. While there was the brief moment of hope for Team USA, especially when Malik Tillman tied up the game in the 31st minute, scoring what would turn out to be their lone goal in the game. When less than 90 seconds later, they're coming back down and scoring again, taking away any chance of momentum for us. You're watching Christian Pulisic, our presumed best player, watch from the bench after injuring his foot and now likely heading toward surgery. It just felt like one of those things where it was not our night, not Team USA's time. And I think provided all USA soccer fans maybe a bit of harsh reality, maybe a bit of a reminder of how far they still have to go before we can look at USA and say that they've got a legitimate shot at winning a World Cup. Clearly, there's still this hierarchy in the world when it comes to soccer. It's going to be the likes of the teams that are in the Final Four of this tournament. France, Spain, England, Argentina, those kind of countries. They're going to always have the edge on us because to them, soccer is like what the NFL is for us or what hockey is for our friends up north in Canada. So while we get caught up on the excitement of this event every 4 years, you see the passion from the fan base, we're still a long ways away from being a team that can truly contend for a World Cup. But I'll tell you, this tournament, it's been exciting. It's had its moments of controversy, including what happened over the weekend in the game between England and Norway, where there's questions on whether the ball had hit the sky cam during extra time in the first half and whether the game should have been stopped there and should have negated a goal for England. Bit disappointed that Norway's out because their fans had been so fun to watch throughout this, and that wherever they went, they were seemingly taking over that part of the country. But we've gotten to the point where FIFA probably expected us to get to, most soccer fans probably expected us to get to. These were the 4 best teams coming into this tournament. And now over the next week, they will battle it out to decide a champion, starting with France and Spain playing on Tuesday afternoon out in Dallas. And then on Wednesday, England taking on Argentina in Atlanta before the winners meet up at MetLife Stadium, or should I say, New Jersey, New York Stadium on Sunday afternoon to decide the World Cup. Maybe it's just because I'm that guy. Maybe it's just I love those holding a grudge. But I very much respect the pettiness by Philadelphia Phillies ace Zack Wheeler. Zack Wheeler, who's having a remarkable season, especially when you take into consideration what he went through at the end of last year. Coming back off of surgery to attend to thoracic outlet syndrome, something that has killed off the career of some pitchers over the last, 15 to 20 years. He's come back from it and shown no ill effects from that surgery. Missed the first month of this season, but has been the continued rock star he's been ever since putting on a Phillies uniform, showing the big mistake Brody Van Wagenen made when he was running the Mets, not re-signing this guy and prioritizing some other young pitchers that weren't worth our time or attention. He said clearly last week, did Wheeler, that he felt disrespected by not making the initial roster. And hell, when they came out with the announcements as far as injury replacements, he was not amongst those first listed. He even said he was like a fifth option when they came to him in the last week. Is like, no. I'm not going to be some fifth option on this. I'm either making the initial roster or I'm not going to be there at all. And I can respect that. I can respect that kind of pettiness. And he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball. And I get the National League squad was loaded this year. But part of the problem is you got this whole nonsense where every team's got to be represented. This one's for the fans. Well, that's hypocritical if you're saying this one's for the fans and you're not having one of the best pitchers in the sport part of this. Yes, the event is taking place at Citizens Bank Ballpark in Philadelphia tomorrow night. But I do respect this. I like the fact that he's standing up for himself. He's standing on his principles. And baseball, get things right. Do the right thing when it comes to this All-Star game. The nonsense that every team needs to be represented, no. If a team is absolute trash, you should not be entitled to a representative for the All-Star game. Philadelphia is going to be the center of the baseball universe for the next 48 hours as you got the All-Star game on Tuesday night. But tonight you got the home run derby, and I will be focused in on this derby as Yankees first baseman Ben Rice will be part of the competition. I don't like the fact that they've changed up the rules this year where rather than the clock, it's going to be essentially a swing off where each hitter will have 20 swings in the first round, and then those who advance to the second round and finals will be down to only 15 swings. I like that sense of urgency that the clock had, especially what if you have a guy that goes on a run like Josh Hamilton did years ago. See, they're saying 20 swings, but what if you just go on a run there and you have 15 consecutive home runs hit with those 20 swings? Are we just going to say stop after 20 swings? That is something that wasn't exactly made clear with the rules. And I'm sure when we tune into the streaming services to watch this on Netflix tonight, maybe they'll make a better guide, give a better understanding on this. But you got a pretty good field here. You got two Phillies with Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper. My guy Ben Rice is in the mix here. Got that psycho from Boston, Wilson Contreras. Jack Caglione of the Royals is in this. Junior Caminero, who went on a big home run at the end of June from the Rays, is in it. You got the youngster Jordan Walker. And then you've got the rookie from Japan, Murakami, from the White Sox, who probably would have had 30 home runs at this point before he went on the IL in May, because he was seemingly hitting a home run every other day. You hope this is a good event. You hope that this is something fun for the fans and can have everyone take a deep little breath here in the marathon that is the Major League Baseball season.
I'll be back.
Well, not so fast there, Kawhi Leonard. Just when you thought you were getting out of California, gonna race out of the country and head back up to the Great White North in Toronto, Canada, the NBA has put a halt on that, as the trade that was first reported back at the end of June between the Clippers and the Raptors that would have sent Kawhi back to Canada for a couple of players and 4 future draft picks has now been put on hold until the NBA completes their investigation on whether the Clippers circumvented the salary cap. And I don't know what's taken so long with this investigation. And this has been going on for 10 months now, ever since ESPN's Pablo Torre began what was, I think, a 10 or 11 part podcast, breaking this all down, investigating all of this. What this is centered around is whether they circumvented the salary cap to acquire Kawhi Leonard through his $28 million endorsement deal with the now bankrupt Green Banking Company Aspirations, which also had a $300 million 23-year endorsement deal with the team. Steve Ballmer, who invested $60 million in that company, has continuously, profusely denied he had any knowledge of Kawhi's deal. You read through all of this investigation, you keep hearing the name Dennis Robertson come up, Kawhi's uncle and business advisor, and he's kind of always come off as a bit of a shady dude, if you ask me. You see this a lot with professional athletes. There's always that one friend or relative that's kind of a hanger-on there. That's what it seems like right now you've got with Uncle Dennis here. I don't blame the league putting this on hold until the conclusion of their probe into this. And I also don't blame the Toronto Raptors for being okay with this being put on hold, as they put in their statement. They're eager to bring Kawhi back to Toronto and look for a swift resolution for this, for their organization and fans, but they should not have to deal with any of the risks or penalties involved in this. And this happened after he left there. Why should they be punished if he potentially gets suspended? Why would you want to complete a trade and then find out a player is getting suspended for, say, half the season or a quarter of the season, when you know that at most Kawhi is going to play 55 to 60 games anyway with how he load manages? You're going to want him available as much as possible. So if he gets a big suspension, is gone for a good chunk of the season, and say is only available for 60 games next year, but only wants to play in about 35 of them, I would be in an uproar as well. I would want more bang for my buck. So I don't blame them for wanting this deal on hold, and I don't blame the NBA for putting this on hold. Hopefully there is some kind of resolution before you get to training camp. I worried this was going to happen. I feared this was going to happen. I brought this up, whether it be last week or the week before, but we still have no decision on LeBron James's future, as we are a couple of days past the 15-year anniversary of the infamous decision. He still has not made a choice on what team he's going to end up on. You've heard the names, whether it be the Warriors, the Sixers, the San Antonio Spurs, the Nuggets, the Heat, the Cavaliers. Teams like that have all been thrown in the mix here. And Rich Paul can say all he wants that he's not, quote unquote, ring chasing. But let's face it, LeBron James is not going to a team like, say, the Brooklyn Nets or the Sacramento Kings or some team that's in a big market but has no chance of winning an NBA championship. He's only got maybe a year or two left that he actually wants to play basketball before he's going to move on with his life and do other things. So he's going to want to put himself in the best opportunity possible to win a championship. But now we're reaching almost the embarrassing portion of this, where you're starting to see representatives from these teams, would it be executives or members of ownership, that are sending him these voice recorded messages to sell their organization on their vision to him. And I'm like, are we kidding ourselves here? This is not 24-year-old LeBron James. This is LeBron James that is 41 and going to turn 42 at some point during this season. And you're all bowing down at the altar of this guy. You're essentially selling your souls for what, 1, maybe 2 years of jersey sales, ticket sales to profit off of the LeBron James legacy. And at some point, you gotta have some sense of shame, some sense of pride in yourselves, and not be doing some of this stupid shit that we're seeing some of these teams, some of these franchises put themselves through. That's why, Knicks fans everywhere should be continuing to say hallelujah on them winning a championship this year. Because can you imagine if they didn't win a championship and they were part of this nonsense? Because James Dolan would have put their name in the mix of things here, even despite the great job Leon Rose has done and how much he's avoided situations like this one. With winning this title, you've been able to just kind of sit back, kick your feet up, re-sign everyone other than Mitchell Robinson, including this past week coming to terms with Jordan Clarkson on a deal for him to return to a roster, and watch everybody else embarrass themselves in the continued push for bringing in LeBron James, thinking that you're getting vintage prime LeBron James rather than realizing that still getting a good player, but not someone that you can rely on to carry your entire organization. Now, what the San Antonio Spurs hope, whether they get LeBron James in this offseason or not, that they have that player that's going to carry them through for the next decade, that being Victor Wembanyama. And he's made a lot of headlines over the last couple days as he took what was essentially the San Antonio Spurs route or way of doing things by taking a lesser deal than he could have to remain a San Antonio Spur. He agreed to a 5-year, $252 million max rookie skill contract extension, deciding to take the 25% maximum instead of the 30% supermax escalator that would have been over $303 million, saving the Spurs roughly $50 million over the next 5 years. Part of that could be realizing that they've got other young stars that are going to be coming up for contracts in the next couple of years, including Stephon Castle. The other part of it could be the hindrance that continues to be the league's second apron when it pertains to the salary cap. And that's why you've seen a lot of these teams do some of the things that they've done in recent years, whether it be the Knicks letting Mitchell Robinson go in free agency, or the recent trade of the Celtics sending Jaylen Brown to the Philadelphia 76ers. And the only team that we saw go above the second apron this past season was the Cleveland Cavaliers. And it remains to be seen whether they're going to be willing to do that a second consecutive year, depending on what happens with LeBron and whether or not they're re-signing James Harden. But the complaining that I've seen from the head of the Players Association, David Kelly, in the last couple of days, I'm like, dude, you guys agreed to the CBA. Well, I think the second apron is stupid, and I agree it's something that either needs to be softened or gotten rid of. No one held your feet to the fire. No one held you at gunpoint telling you to sign the CBA. You should have planned better for the future in realizing that this is a problem. And it's something that you're going to have to address the next time the CBA comes up after the 2028-2029 season. But in no way should Victor Wembanyama be criticized for signing this deal. You look at the guy, he's 7'4", 7'5", and we've seen the history of some players in this league at that height, like Yao Ming. Yao Ming probably did not make as much financially as he probably could have as a basketball player, because his career got shortened to only 8 or 9 years because of injuries. See, while he made a boatload of money off the court, he probably never got to the amount of riches that he could have been as a player if he had stayed healthy. And when you think about the scare that he had a little over a year ago with the blood clots, where even at that time he was concerned about his own mortality as a player, and then you get offered $252 million in your early 20s, that's really hard to pass up. That's really hard to snub your nose at and say, no thanks, I'm good, when you've dealt with some of the things that he's dealt with. When you have the opportunity to make bank on your career, take it. I'm never going to judge anyone for taking the money early, because we've seen plenty of times it can slip away from you and your career can be over just like that.
I'll be back.
Sometimes some people just don't know when to hang it up. Sometimes some people don't realize when their 15 minutes of fame is over or when their career is over. And I get it. The life of a professional athlete is a life that can be very fulfilling and can be something that you just never want to end. I get that you guys have one career, you have one opportunity to cash in on this, and you want to draw as much as possible. But at the same time, you also don't want to embarrass yourself. You want to realize that you have a name and standard to live up to. Your last name doesn't just carry the weight of yourself, it also carries the weight of your family. and you don't want to be an embarrassment to them. That's what it almost feels like right now Conor McGregor is going through, as he doesn't realize that it's over. It's time to hang it up. It's time to move on with your life. This past weekend, we saw the latest embarrassment in what has been the continued fall of the career of Conor McGregor. You had this hyped up fight with Max Holloway, a rematch that UFC fans had long waited for. It's been over a decade since they fought the first time. Tension seemed high for this, especially you saw the competition between them at the weigh-in and some of the press conferences leading up to this fight. But I think people were more so basing this off of the reputation of Conor McGregor and not what Conor McGregor has become. He hasn't fought in 5 years. He's fought one time since the Obama administration. And you think about his career. Yeah, it had the high of highs in the beginning. He started his career 9-1. He became the first UFC fighter to hold world titles in 2 divisions simultaneously as both a featherweight and lightweight. But since 2017, his career has not been the same, starting with that ill-fated choice to have the boxing match with Floyd Mayweather, which was one of the biggest wastes of times that any of us ever dealt with, even more of a bigger waste of time than the fight Mayweather had with Manny Pacquiao. At least that came off as a legitimate boxing fight. You've seen him deal with lawsuits outside of the fighting world. He broke his leg at one point and had been trying to come back from that. And then you look at this event, the main event of UFC 329 out in Las Vegas at T-Mobile Arena, something that everybody had been hyping up and waiting for. Less than 2 minutes into the fight, he goes down with what we're presuming is a torn ACL. And I say presuming because he has not given us any update other than telling us that he's going in for surgery on his knee. You watch the video leading up to the fight when he's walking up to the octagon. He's hopping up and down. He's getting all hyped up. And before he even climbs the steps to get into the cage, you're noticing his right knee is a bit gimpy. He's hopping on one leg. So it's like, dude, it's time to hang it up. It's time to move on. You're 37 years old. The sport is clearly passed you by. You've got fighters that are more deserving probably of this spotlight, and you're just bringing more negative attention upon your name than anything positive at this point. Well, you also worry though with the UFC. You worry about people, especially the casual viewer, viewing MMA as corrupt. For a long time, that reputation has been brought upon the boxing world. People look at FIFA as corrupt. But then you look at the last couple of big moments, what should have been highlight moments for MMA. You have this MMA fight between Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano on Netflix a couple of months ago that ended within 20 seconds when Ronda Rousey essentially bear hugged Gina Carano to the ground, and they're both laughing on the ground as Gina Carano immediately taps out. Essentially, they were laughing right all the way to the bank. Then you have the event at the White House last month, which you could say what you want about whether that event should or should not have taken place there, but there was nothing that really captivated the world or drew people to to that beyond just the location of the event. Didn't have anything that had the casual viewer saying, oh, maybe this is something I should become involved in. And then when you see where 92% of the betting odds were in McGregor's favor heading into this fight with Max Holloway, and less than a minute into it, he is down for the count with a gimpy knee. I don't know, just something about this sport does not feel right now, and it's part of the reason why I have never truly wrapped my arms around it and become anything more than a casual viewer of UFC. Now, as I said earlier, this is the hardest week to do a podcast, do any form of broadcasting or any form of streaming, anything when it comes to the sports world, with how everything's kind of quiet this week, with it being the Major League Baseball All-Star break. And you can clearly tell that people are dying for football to be back in their life, as ESPN revealed the annual quarterback rankings that are done by coaches, executives, and scouts around the league, the top 10 rankings. I don't think you can have too much of an argument over the top spots. You want to go back and forth and argue who's won between Allen and Mahomes. That's fine, but I think they got those top two spots right, as far as not necessarily saying Allen is definitively better than Mahomes, but if you're arguing anyone else other than those two for the top spots, I think your head needs to be examined. Matthew Stafford, even despite the injuries he had going into last season, played at an MVP level the entire year and still showing that he has something left in the tank. Part of the reason why I'm viewing the Rams as my Super Bowl favorite going into this year. So those top three spots I don't have a problem with. But it's when you get to 4 through 10 that you have a lot of questions. I mean, Joe Burrow, yes, he's great, has no defense around him, but he missed the postseason last year. And the same with Lamar Jackson. And I've seen a lot of people questioning Lamar Jackson being at 5, but availability is an ability, people. And when he's constantly getting hurt and now entering his 30s, that's something that you've got to look at. But those guys belong in the top 5. The bigger problem is 6 through 10 here. Because how do you not have the Super Bowl champion Sam Darnold in the 6 through 10 spot? I'm not saying you got to have him at 6, but he definitely should be in the top 10. He put up back-to-back really, really, really good years for two different teams. First the Vikings, and then last year with the Seahawks, showing that it was no fluke and wasn't just a passenger on their ride to winning a Super Bowl. Yes, he wasn't the Super Bowl MVP. That was Kenneth Walker. And he had a really good defense and a great wide receiver around him. But you got to have a quarterback that can get those weapons the football, and he was not making the mistakes that we were tend to seeing from him during his years with the Jets and the Carolina Panthers. I mean, some of these guys in the 6 through 10 range, Dak Prescott never won a damn thing in his life. Justin Herbert, same thing. Neither one of these guys has won a playoff game. Drake May, yes, got his team to the Super Bowl, but then was awful in that Super Bowl. Jared Goff, I don't have a problem with him being in the top 10. I think he's an underrated quarterback. But Caleb Williams, and come on, can we have more than one good year out of him? Do we not remember how much of a painful experience that his rookie season was? I mean, these are the kind of things that you deal with in Major League All-Star break week, but this shows how much of kings football continues to be. This shows how much people are dying for football to be back in their lives with these kind of debates, these kind of rankings. I'm sure you can have polls come out for all of the other positions as this week goes on. Running backs, wide receivers, team defenses. So be prepared, folks. While it's been dormant largely for the last 5 months, football, it's right around the corner. It's not that far away, people. We're 2 weeks away from training camp beginning. And then what about 5 weeks after that? We'll be kicking the ball off for real. And we'll then have 18 weeks of Sundays that feel like holidays. It driving us crazy at times, but continuing to show us this is why we love football and this is why we love sports. And that, my friends, was Keeping It Sports with M3 for Monday, July 13th, 2026. Everyone, please have a great night. Have a fun, safe, happy, healthy week. Remember, folks, you got one life, so you might as well try to live it up to the fullest. And I'll talk to you guys again, same time, next week. Until then, peace.
We have to go. Good night, everybody. I have had enough of you. Thank you for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will you?
I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.